What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to CanesCast. We're back better than ever because every week is another win for our Hurricanes, at least through 3 weeks. So super excited with CanesCast. I'm Phil here with Garrett, and we're excited for another episode. Going to go over quite a bit of stuff today. So thank you all for tuning in. Garrett, I just want to throw it to you to start, like usual. We want to talk about this Ball State game because there was a lot to like. And what do you think? What are your thoughts? I'm sure there's a lot of positive thoughts because anything that we could have critiqued after FAMU at Florida A&M game seemed to have been fixed. And, you know, what is a better team by measure, we destroyed even worse. So, yeah, what are some of your thoughts on that game?
Well, the only bad thing was that, again, Isaiah Horton had a beautiful long touchdown that got called back for a holding penalty. I did like Sam Brown's, Air Jordan he did here, so that's why I picked that from a background picture. But I think the biggest thing that was is there was a little few too many penalties. I think that's the one thing that the last two games that Miami really does maybe need to work on a little bit, because as you go deeper in the season and games get tougher, that's probably going to be the one thing that'll sting us if you don't clean those up. So working on penalties is definitely got to be the focal point. But I mean, what can you say? We had 750 yards of total offense. You hold a team, any team, down under 150 yards of total offense. I don't know how he can get much better than that. So Cam Ward's
119, I think.
Yeah, Cam Ward's still putting up plenty of stats to keep the Heisman. If you look around, the odds makers have pushed him to the front because Quentin Ewers, went out with an abdominal injury, so he was the only guy really in front of Cam last week, and now Cam is the betting favorite for the Heisman Trophy. So I'm super glad that I got him at plus 2,300, because right now you're only getting plus 150, or the odds are not going to win you a ton of money if you put the money on it now. So
I think it's
that's
plus 550 right now.
550
is what I'm seeing. Yeah.
Okay. Well, then I'm going to triple that almost, so that's
Hey, I would prefer you just not talk about it because we want our guy to win the Heisman. So we talk about jinx and stuff and all that. Let's not put any of that bad juju out there, and let's just say, okay, wow, let's just keep getting better and keep getting better. It all looks good now, but if it all looks good in 5 weeks, we'll be even more excited, right? That's what it needs to continue to do. And that he's got out to such a good start, though, that you would think that it's gonna, his statistically he'll be in the conversation for the whole year, barring something catastrophic. But
I do believe he's leading the nation in touchdown passes, and I think he's top
I don't
three.
know.
I think he's top 3 in yardage total. So
He's second in yards.
Yeah, you're definitely in good shape if you have those stats for sure. So I think what that makes it, is it 12 then total touchdowns with his one rushing touchdown. So you can't ask for much more than that. He's definitely performed. We haven't had, outside of the Florida team being an SEC program, the last two programs aren't like world beaters. So, but that's what you want to see. You want to see a guy going out there getting, nice stats, setting himself up for ACC play here, and then this big test here this weekend against USF. I do believe USF is going to come ready to play. I think they're, trying to be the new kid on the block in some respect, even though the program's been around. I do believe this is one of those games that they like to say would be a stepping stone. So that's I'm sure USF's going to play a good game on their front.
Yeah, and I'll get to that too. I'll touch on that in a second. I just want to go back to some of the Ball State stuff. So just first of all, you touched on some of the stats, but some of the stuff that's more, I don't want to say it's not more impressive than the yards, because holding them to 115, excuse me, it's 119. So again, four more credit than they deserve. 150 total yards is nuts. I mean, you can have that in a drive, in 2 drives, basically, depending on, what happens. So that's nuts. That's impressive. But holding him to 1 of 12, I just pulled it up on third down. What's really impressive too is 100 of those yardage of that yardage, excuse me, 115 yards, 109 was through the air. So they had 6 yards rushing on 20
for
on
for a
20
lot of the
rushing
game.
attempts.
they were negative rushing yards for almost till the end there too.
No, and that's great. Mids are the things that just outside of what we do with like Ward in a game like this, we talked about padding stats or Restrepo and all these guys getting those up. We've talked about that ad nauseum. It's just a total team thing, and it boosts what our team stats are, and that's epic. I mean, that's 0.3 yards a carry. That's crazy. The one thing though, like you mentioned, is penalties. Penalties. Can we survive because of the talent and the depth that we have, especially when you get a guy like Bain back or Brown back? Can we survive ACC games with those? Yeah, you can. Teams will win games they shouldn't. Teams will play great teams, have a bunch of penalties and sneak out wins. Those things happen. But bottom line, you got to cut those things back. I think they made a concerted effort after some of the lapses they saw in the secondary against Florida A&M that to shore that up. Obviously, they did. I would say Ball State is a superior opponent, and they shored it up and they took care of business in the secondary like that. But those penalties have to stop, because those penalties and a contested thing will let a team like USF, who's feeling themselves, who's hyped because they just played Alabama tight. They played Alabama really well. That game opened up in the fourth quarter. It was what was a very close game. And last year they did the same thing with Bama, although it was close to the end. So the team's scrappy. They're top of the top 10 in rushing, quarterback that can move. Do we have the talent, and do we have the expectation that ultimately we should win this game by 17, 20, 24 points, something like that? Yes. But if you play, it could be more. And this is going to be a stepping stone. I've heard for them, you mentioned a stepping stone for them, but it's a stepping stone for us too, because it is another jump up in competition for how they're playing. And these guys are going to be motivated because they look around the state and they go, FSU's garbage. Florida's a hot mess. Miami is back on top of the state, has always been the big brother in the state as far as championships and head-to-heads with the other teams. And, players drafted and the alumni, all the stuff that Miami brings to the table, home win streaks, all the stuff that we know. And they got a shot to come in here like UCF did a couple of years ago, where they were trying to say, no, we're a part of that conversation. It's not just the big three. There's UCF, there's USF. We're a part of this. So we're going to get their best shot. We know they're going to get their best shot. Just like we talked about getting the best shot from FSU down the road, even though they're terrible. That we know that team will come to play, at least for a little bit. That game can be chippy. And now, how do you solve that? You take the wind out of the sails. You punch them in the mouth early. Do the same thing we did to Florida. You take that fan base that's chirping and talking and talking and talking, going crazy. They're going to light us up. Miami's overrated. All the trash talk we see all over Barstool USF, all over the internet, posted pictures of no Kias like we talked about. Oh, it's the last time you won a championship. Well, when's the last time USF's won a championship? Never. So there's a lot of things there, a lot of trash talk. And I like that we're staying silent. Let the play do the talking, come out there and just end it. The thing that bothers me the most about this, and I heard them talked about, I've heard this talked about in other podcasts throughout the narrative game, is what was it? Miami can't beat Florida. Too tough an environment. Can't play in the swamp. Just crazy. It's the toughest place to play in the country. Cam Ward's never played in a place like that. We went in and killed them. And what do we hear? Florida sucks. Florida's not that good. USF pushes Bama twice in a row. They're a scrappy team, solid squad. You're going to win a lot of games this year. We go in there and punch them in the mouth. What are we going to hear? Well, you still haven't played anybody. So that's my favorite. That's my favorite thing. But it just, obviously, sarcastically, just keep winning. That's all I care about. Just keep winning. Just keep padding these. Shut down the run game. Let the rest take care of itself. I don't think Bain's going to play in this game. I don't think we need him. I'm not sure if Brown's going to play in the game. I don't think we need him. I think they're both going to be back for that Virginia Tech game on Friday, starting ACC play. Great. Just, can they find a way to slow down our offense? We talk about their offense. Our defense is we have the top ranked secondary graded wise in PFF in the country. Cam Ward's the highest graded quarterback,
which is nice, because that was a big question mark going into the season. Was the secondary going to do their part? So that is encouraging as well. No matter who you play, you can't help who you have on the schedule. Yep. So certainly there's teams out there that have had wins against a higher ranked opponent, but again, Miami, take care of business, play who's on the schedule. Don't let anyone snip you a less talented team. Don't let them, knock you down to their level. So we'll have everything in front of us that we want if you just beat every team that's in front of you. Take care of it. Take care of business, right?
100%. Something I want to see is a commitment to the run game. a bigger commitment to the run game just to really kind of get that kick started. I think that might be a reason we didn't see Martinez much at all against Ball State is, well, one, the quality opponent, but I think he had 3 yards. He hasn't been so far, hasn't had to have been this big impact piece, considering how we've played across the board, how Lyles looked when he's come in. Obviously, Fletcher spearheaded the whole running unit. Allen has looked, he deserves the minutes he's getting. He deserves the reps he's getting. The guy runs hard. He looked great against Ball State. And, I've been a big Allen fan. I've been banging the table as far as him getting more minutes. So I love that. Chris Johnson took the touchdown up the sideline in the last game right before half, helped blow that open before halftime. And we have a huge stable of backs, but going into the season, we all assumed Martinez would spearhead this. Well, I think ACC play, if not this game, but as we approach ACC play is when you're going to see kind of a coming out party for Martinez, and I'm hoping we see that this week because Fletcher looks the part. Fletcher is the part. He's our guy. We love Fletcher, but I want to see Martinez get some play. I want to see him get out there and embrace and what's the word I'm looking for? Cement that hype was warranted.
I'd have to say that's the most surprising thing to me so far this year is he's not gotten really going yet. So it's maybe making me question a little bit. Is it something where he's just not gelled with the team yet? You know what I mean? He didn't come in spring. He came in post spring. This is just something. Maybe it's nothing, but it just somewhat kind of surprises me. It almost looks like he's somewhat isolated. I see Kane walking. He kind of is walking in by himself on the sidelines. He's, not surrounded by teammates. That's the one thing I'm maybe starting to wonder is if it's just not maybe a good fit. I hope that's not the case, but that's just the one thing I want to keep an eye on. Like you're talking here, this game is supposed to be, I've seen other people talk about this is his coming out game. Mm-hmm. So does it play out that way? Am I reading too much into something just because there's not a lot of negative to really talk about so far this season for the Miami Hurricanes? So surely I hope that that's not the case. I hope he is a Cane, has a big bunch of games ahead of him. But that's just one thing that it is a little bit of concern, I guess, because especially I think to be honest with you, I think Florida A&M could beat Ball State, having watched the two squads that we've played. So I'd say Ball State's probably the third ranked of the games that we've seen so far. Obviously, the score showed that we shut them out, score 62 points. So that's
yeah.
You would like to thought that Damian Martinez would have had it. Even if it wasn't in a bunch, didn't get a bunch of carries because they are saving him, you would have liked to see him get a good 10, 15-yarder, 20-yarder at some point. So that's the one thing I'm going to keep an eye on as far as the next couple of games to see, is that really, maybe it's just not what you expected. And that's all right, because everybody else that's come in, Tyler Barron's been lights out. I think Brown has played okay. Not getting in the end zone in that Florida game was probably his biggest duff, but I think he really started kind of ramping it up a little bit in this Ball State game. He wants to get the ball in his hands and make big moves. I think that was tough early on in the game. He wasn't able to make cuts because the 2-hour rain delay was, certainly slippery conditions and stuff like that played into early on in that game for sure.
Yeah. There might be some slippery conditions against USF this weekend too. So we'll see how that ends up playing out. I think that a guy, like when you look at Martinez and Fletcher, I believe that they're going to be in a position to, the team wants them available for the long run. So I think it's kind of, maybe it's tread on the tires. It's making sure you have these guys available for a playoff run. Running backs get dinged up. They miss games. We have a huge stable that we can rely on, but when push comes to shove, literally, right? When you're in those close, tight yardage, you're 3rd and 1, 4th and 1, 4th and inches, goal line situations. Who do you want to hand the ball off to? We have a great offensive line. Who do you want to hand the ball off to? You want to hand it off to these physical runners. That's Fletcher and that's Martinez. And at some point, and I hope I'm wrong, I hope we don't need it, but at some point you're going to assume that there's going to be a game that's tight, that we're going to have to convert some of those, that we're going to have to, it's going to be close and you're going to need to grind the clock out and win the game. It's not all going to be a walkover. Is that going to be a random ACC game? Maybe. that's really the only option. Is it going to be an ACC title game? Is it going to be a playoff game? We don't know. All we know is whatever that game is, we're going to want to win it. So maybe that's what this is. Maybe that's what this is about. And, we'll see as the season progresses. The USF game will be big, and we'll find out a little like, is he in the doghouse for some reason, or is he not vibing with the squad? But the thing about running backs too, while it is a team sport and they have to know their assignment, they have to know where they are, pass blocking assignments and things like that. I think it's an easier position to kind of, they say it's the easiest transition. I'm not going to say any transition from pro or college to pro is easy, but it's the easiest because it's maybe more of a standalone. You get the ball and you go, you hit the hole. You can do that and hit your blocks, when you're called upon. Then I think that there's, it's easier for a guy to be in that position and still, when he gets the rock in his hands, make things happen. So we'll see if that progresses to anything to worry about. I certainly hope not. I was excited for Martinez. You were excited for Martinez, but yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. We'll do the prediction at the end, what we think, but I just want to run over a couple of things real quick. And then I'm going to touch on something a little more fun, at least more fun for me. I know, I love relishing in other aspects of what's going on in college football right now. I think you know where I'm going with that, but we talked about Ward's rating. He's the highest graded player in college football, highest rated quarterback in college football, excuse me. Second in yards, Jackson Dart is first in yards. And I think that right now it's those two. Those two are the guys. If Ewers is out, depending on how long he's out, it's going to hurt his Heisman case, because Manning will come in and all the fanfare doesn't help that Manning is going to get, that he's Manning. He'll be the first pick of the draft when he comes out. All that stuff's not going to help Ewers' case. But yeah, I mean, Ward is setting the world on fire. We don't have anything to ride home super heavy about in the rushing game. I think these games have been what we've talked about for Ward. Have those stats, crush it, get that Heisman case, get the fuel on the fire and keep it going early and let that thing stay hot all season. But scoring offense, 5th in the country, 53 points a game. That's what we're averaging. Ohio State's 54, Louisville is 55.5, Ole Miss is 56, goes back to the Jackson Dart thing, and Tennessee, who's also very, very good in their own right, 63.7. They've hung a few 60s on people, as we know. And scoring defense, we're not in the top 10 right now, but we're not far out. So let me pull scoring defense right here. We are tied for 15th.
Just to throw it out there, like, Dart they have nobody they're playing. So you got to imagine they're going to put up a ton of stats this weekend too. So it will be important.
100%.
Certainly you compare against opponents. Should Cam Ward throw for 300, 3-4 touchdowns, then he'll still stay right there neck and neck with Jackson Dart. But I mean, I did look through the schedule and I was like, oh, great. That guy's probably going to throw for 600 yards and 7 touchdowns or something. So that, you can't fault him again. You can't help who's on the schedule. Ole Miss certainly will play tougher teams going on down the schedule. So you expect that to even out at some point too. Sorry, go ahead with your stats, bud.
No, you're good. I'm just looking at, you got me thinking about their schedule. Yeah, Georgia Southern, so that's going to be there. And then Kentucky, it'll come back to earth a little bit when they play Kentucky.
Yeah, Kentucky took Georgia down to the wire, man.
We were rooting for it.
Never been such a big Kentucky fan.
I know, we're rooting for it. These other teams got to lose, otherwise we're never going to be able to find ourselves at number 1. So hopefully there's some movement there, unless there's just such dominance throughout the year. If we kill everybody, eventually they'll move us there just for quality of wins, how big the deficits are in these games that we're playing. But excuse me.
But as everyone knows, like that used to be something super important. You had to get to the top 2, then to the top 4. Now it's win your conference, get into the playoffs. Everything's going to start over at that point. So it's not as well. It's really would be nice to see Miami with that number 1 next to their name in the rankings. It's not as important as it used to be.
No, I agree. If you're top 15, you're going to have an argument, right? And we're going to see teams throughout this 12-team playoff that it's not going to just be 1 through 12. There's going to be a 15th or a 14th team that makes it over, and people are going to be upset. People are still going to be angry because regardless of these situations, because you're never going to let everybody in. But yeah, they go Kentucky, Ole Miss, LSU, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia. So, there you got a lot of games here where his stats are going to come back to earth, but they're doing the exact same thing. They're trying to take advantage of those games where he can throw 400 yards, add another 5 touchdowns, and keep those averages high, keep their scoring offense high. So at the end of the year, they can say, oh, look, we averaged however many points a game. Because you have these huge ones. So if they have a 14-point game, it's still going to stay so high. Every team's doing the same thing.
And we've talked about it in seasons past, let's say that, there are a couple of plays that Miami has still left on the table. So these 3 games as a ramp up into the teeth of the schedule, you expect that Cam Ward and the couple that a yard off here and there, those plays get made later in the season. So certainly he could have had several more yards and maybe a touchdown, 2 or more. Markel Bell would just keep his hands inside, man. Keep your hands inside, big fella. We'll get a couple more teeters on the board there.
Yeah, that's the penalties have to stop.
That guy is a monster though, isn't he? Like McCoy is a big player, all right, 6'6" something. And he looks like a 6'1" guard next to Markel Bell. So I think that him getting the experience at left tackle while Rivers is taking kind of a little bit of a break. He is coming back this week. We are getting Rivers back for sure. I know they've said that.
Yeah.
So you like to see the line start to be the set line, barring injuries going forward. You like to really start dialing up, getting everybody on the same page there. So as again, the protection will be good. The beauty is that the guy behind you isn't, a statue. If something sneaks by you here and there, he's got your back. He's going to be able to get outside the pocket and make a play regardless. So gotta love that. I don't know if we want to talk about it, but that was something we talked about during the Saturday here was you watch Tyler Van Dyke go down with that injury against Alabama. It's not that you would ever want to see a guy ever get injured, but that was what you maybe were missing with Tyler Van Dyke. It's not that he wasn't talented, but both seasons, the last 2 years, outside of his rookie year when he really did have some great games, he was dinged up, and it wasn't like he's a physical running quarterback that he was putting his body on the line. Not that you can't get, hit in the backfield back there too, but it just seemed like he couldn't stay quite healthy. And then all of a sudden that was what kind of derailed us for the last 2 years. And again, nothing against the guy, wish him well, hopefully a speedy recovery, but that you're just thankful that we got a guy that can really take care of his body. It seems escape trouble when it slips into the backfield. You'd like to see that continue as we certainly go into, again, tougher opponents going down the road. No bets about it. But I trust that he's good. Right.
Yeah. I trust Ward. Yeah, I feel bad for Van Dyke. I was a big Van Dyke guy. I pounded the table for Van Dyke. I thought this was our first opportunity in a while to have a really highly drafted quarterback. He took off. He went to a different school. I'm not going to wish any ill will on him or anything like that. He was a quarterback that was feast or famine. We have a quarterback that
really was
the best quarterback in the country one week. And then it doesn't matter against a good opponent too. And then could look just like, why is this guy out there against a bad opponent or against a good opponent? And I think we all kind of figured that game would go the way that it went, regardless of whether or not he played against Alabama. Wisconsin, I don't think, has it. And we just have too much experience knowing what Van Dyke does. I wouldn't have been shocked to see him go out there and really do well. I still was going to expect Alabama to win. I wouldn't have been shocked at all if Van Dyke had a huge game. Alabama still wins. But then again, some other team, like he did the first week of the season, he was underwhelming. They got booed on their home field. So that sucks to see. Something I do want to bring up real quick. A feather in his cap, Ward's cap for the Heisman case over Jackson Dart is the touchdown discrepancy. So Dart's actually only thrown for 8 touchdowns. They both have thrown 1 pick, but only 8. So he's got a handful, basically a game's worth ahead of him. So if he can keep that pace, that'll be huge. Real quick.
I hold up before you move on.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Yeah.
I thought we talked about it on the last show that I think Emory Williams really is the backup quarterback.
Oh,
they're gonna do everything they can to keep him from now. He's got 3 games left before he would burn a red shirt. I do believe you come in mop up duty, you're going to see Poffenbarger probably come in, but Emory Williams looked really good. I was excited to see him really have good timing. And then that beautiful pass he threw to Elijah Lofton down on the sideline there. It was awesome play. So again, I feel better about the backup situation if we for I don't even want to speak it, but let's say we do have to go to number 2. I think I feel a little better about him and his progression this year.
I think it's important that he did get that game. I think it's important that he did get those reps in a situation like that, just so it's like, okay, at least he's throwing the ball in live reps, in a game this year. So if he is called on way down the road, here we are after Halloween, we're sitting before Thanksgiving, and he's got to come in for some reason, you have a little more faith. And if there's another blowout down the road, would I care if he came in maybe one more game, depending on how late in the season it is? No. If we're going to need him to finish the season and not burn his red shirts, you have to be very strategic with that. But I think one more game, if it's a potential, if we're blown out, especially a conference opponent, I think it might be worth seeing those rounds, and still keeping those 2 in the back pocket, and then Poffenbarger gets the rest of it. But that's a coach's decision.
And it is interesting that Cristobal has gone ahead and let Cam's play into the second half, both the last 2 games.
I think he needed to.
I do believe that's what they're going for. Is I think just like us, you got a Heisman candidate that can really do a lot for a program. So probably put him in there. But again, not being afraid of, you coach afraid, you coach to lose. And I do appreciate, give Mario his due, that he isn't seemingly the coach scared to shelf the guy and say, oh gosh, we got this game in hand, letting him kind of come in and get a couple more drives in the second halves of these last 2 games. I like it.
Florida A&M, he needed to. Ball State, he didn't need to, but he did. That's fine. But Florida A&M, they needed to, just to get the taste of how that game ended out of their mouth. That's how that half ended. It didn't end the way we wanted to. It wasn't as crisp as we wanted it to. And they left a lot of things on the field off defensively. They were giving up some. So like we talked about, so I think they needed to end on a high note. You need to go out. It's kind of like, you want to hit your last shot before you walk off the court, right? It's just one of those things. And I think that just needed to end on a high note in that game. But Ball State, it was no competition. It was just it was a mop up. I want to get into the predictions of what we think against USF, but because now the other games didn't really make sense to do predictions because we knew they were going to be beatdowns. Now it's a little more, okay, what's a prediction? What do we think for a game like this? Real quick, I want to shout out our siblings, little brothers in the state, for having, making this year that much more special for Miami. Watching them right now, and I truly don't care what happens the rest of the season. I think this statement will stand no matter what. Watching them struggle like they have after all the talk, especially Florida State, for crying and crying and crying the whole time, about not making the playoff, the suing arguments, all the stuff that they did to come out and have the worst Orange Bowl beatdown we've ever seen. Special. It's our stadium. It's great to see that. I loved it. And then translate that into the 10th ranked team in the country is supposed to be this great squad again. And just constantly, only team to lose on 2 continents. Only first team to be 17th place in the ACC. And they've maintained that position. I love it. I love it. So good for them.
I'm going to talk a lot more jam after the game. Should Miami, of course, we expect probably win that game, but
100%.
I'm not going to
take the opportunity and throw a little bit.
Just yet.
I know. I've had my fair share of back and forth Florida State fans. We've been on the losing end of it. Just going to take that little stab. I think it's the turmoil. I'm just saying we'd all be lying if Hurricane fans, we'd be saying it doesn't make this whole thing a little sweeter. Now, that being said, do we want Florida State to be at their best when we beat them because of rankings and everything else and strength of schedule? Absolutely. Does it make you more nervous? Rivalry games, you throw everything out the window. Does it make you nervous that potentially something could happen and it would hurt us worse? Yeah. But if we lost one game in the season and that was it, we still win the ACC. We can still control our destiny when it comes to that, still get a potential bye, or if we win the ACC, we would have a bye. So now there's a little more room for error, which I love. We've talked about that. And I just want to throw that out because it's been interesting. I do feel for the fans. I do. I will say this. The guy from Florida State that said he was going to eat the dog crap if they lost to Boston College and has been lambasted by ESPN and Barstool and everybody else has put a curse on his program.
Why don't you put something out there like that on our shows, Phil? Get us some notoriety, man.
I'm not doing that.
Are you gonna eat some dog? You eat some dog crap if we lose to Florida State? Come on, man.
Oh, not doing that. No, don't even put that out there. I'm not doing that because first of all, I'm not stupid. Second of all, that's how these things work in sports. This is how you end up with like a Cubs goat curse type thing. You end up with something stupid like this. And I'm telling you, there's been a lot of talk that he cursed the program. And until he does this, Florida State's going to be in this situation of terribleness for a while. So I can speak.
All right, I got to ask you, would you eat dog crap if that was true? Let's say it is a curse. And would you eat dog crap to get Miami off of a snake bitten curse?
I knew it was going to change it. Yeah. If I knew it was going to change it, yeah. I love my squad. I do the same thing for the Dolphins. I would do it for the Heat. I do it for the Panthers. I love the Marlins.
Man, I'm gonna cry, bro. Oh shoot, that's funny.
But I wouldn't put that out there to begin with because nature has a way of punishing you when you do that kind of stuff. And the world is cruel. And he did that. And then he took his Twitter down, or X, killed it, all this stuff. But he has been hit up and hit up and hit up. And I'm telling you, if it gets to a point, we might see this guy do it because he is gone. If they keep losing, he's going to get pressure. And then they're going to go beat Charleston Southern, whoever they have, some cupcake. And they're going to go, see, it's not a curse. If they keep losing, he's going to get some pressure to do it. It's going to be terrible. And he did this to himself. So, but I am awaiting for him to do it. The whole world wants to see him do it. I'm just saying, everyone wants to see him do it. He said he would do it.
All right.
Okay.
All right. So what do we think for the prediction of USF Miami, bro?
We got to wrap this up. So predictions for South Florida against Miami. You want me to go first?
I'll go first. I do think Byron Brown is a decent quarterback. You know, people have watched this show before. It's the kind of quarterback I've clamored for. We got that guy now, but I think he's a big physical guy, can run really well. I think the running game is solid. I think this is a good test for Miami's front seven. You know, they can be physical enough because he's gonna try to hammer a couple runs up the middle. As Maui Noah Saint has looked awesome. So are those guys going to go take it to him a little bit? So Miami's winning this game. I believe we're going to go 42-14.
Okay. Yeah, I'm on the same boat. I think Miami wants to send a message. I'll say they go a little higher. I'll go 45 to I'll give them the benefit, 17. Say they do what the Gators did. So around that same Gators score. I went a little lower. I was more bullish on that Gators game, and we jumped above that as far as how that spread, what we finished with there. So yeah, I think that this could be a game. It wouldn't shock me if USF scored first. It wouldn't shock me if it's tight in the beginning, and then you end up with kind of a game like the Bama game where it opens up, or we're just too much for them as the game goes on. We wear them down, and that's just the talent discrepancy. These guys will come out hyped and ready. The talent discrepancy will sort itself out and start to separate. Again, how quick can we take them out of it? That's going to, play a huge role in how this game goes. If we let them kind of get their legs under them and they're feeling themselves, it could take us longer than we want to put them to kind of switch the game into a position that we want. But yeah, we're both going Miami, multiple scores. Thanks for listening, guys. Thanks for being here, listening to another episode of CanesCast. We love bringing it to you. We love talking our Canes and, breaking things down. We'll be back next week talking about hopeful USF victory and then the start of ACC play. We're excited. Getting to VTech, Friday night game, prime time, just like this game is, 7:00 Eastern for USF. So as always, guys, it's all about the U. See you next week.